now just a bad NBA franchise. They're not very buttoned up in the front office. And the Rangers have been more and more successful. So the Rangers are the second biggest story in town. The Dallas Cowboys are the first biggest story, and the Mavericks are now third. And, Cuban's doing a million things, not with the Mavericks, and he's not paying attention, and his front office is blown up, and his team and his roster is blown up. And that's kind of my theory on what it is. He's just not paying attention. First of all, one of the really bad guys in this was like the CEO of the Mavericks. Now, Cuban can make the argument that, well, our offices weren't that close. They were right across the hall. I didn't meet with him regularly. It's like, Mark, if you're not meeting with him regularly as an owner, if you're not meeting 6 times a year, if Dan Gilbert, you don't think he's meeting with the Cavs GM a half dozen times minimum? You don't think in Cleveland, Snyder and that GM don't go to dinner every couple weeks? I mean, 20 times a year? Who does Dan Gilbert go to dinner with in Cleveland outside of his family? LeBron doesn't hang with him. Players don't hang with him. It's his general manager. Maybe the biggest sponsor, Mercedes of Cleveland. So I don't buy that Mark Cuban, didn't know what was going on. I just don't, that's like the Rick Pitino argument. I had no idea there's a brothel on my campus. Well, it's kind of your job. That's kind of your job. Am I supposed to believe in Louisville that a $40,000 a year assistant or less, without telling Pitino, would create a strip club on campus? Really? You think, now think about that. If you walked into an organization with a very successful, rich, strong-willed CEO, would you take it upon yourself to create an illegal business within the business? If you cared at all about your future, if you wanted to be a college basketball coach for the next 40 years, you would never think of that. So Pitino wants me to believe that a lightly, marginally paid assistant would on his own go rogue just down the hall from Rick. Now, I'm not saying Rick knew everything, but Rick clearly used the old whatever it takes mantra to get recruits. That's the gospel. Yeah. It's that kind of understood ignorance. I have no idea. It's the same with Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban sets the culture. That, a CEO isn't responsible for the day-to-day decisions. I mean, I create a radio show every day. My bosses aren't in the room. My bosses are not responsible for my daily content, but they would be responsible for the morale of the company. I mean, that's why John Skipper got whacked over at ESPN. I mean, one of the reasons was morale had gone into the tank. People were leaving en masse. That's a responsibility of a big shot, of a CEO. What's the morale of the company? Because a CEO can't be in our meetings every morning. He's global. He's traveling. He's negotiating deals with pro leagues. So Mark Cuban set a tone, and if you're re-signing a reporter who had been busted twice for domestic violence like that, that's on Cuban. You just got to be smarter than that.